President Trump on day one ordered his administration to gut policies that were instituted under the Biden administration to prevent sex discrimination and protect transgender Americans, and to, in every way possible and imaginable, and even in ways that aren't possible and haven't been imagined, dismantle any federal programs that promote diversity, equity, inclusion, literally anything like that. So the executive orders included a mix of different administrative measures, such as changing government forms to include only 2 genders, as well as assertions dismissing the validity of gender identity entirely. A gender identity other than the one assigned at birth, an order said, quote, reflects a fully internal and subjective sense of self and does not provide a meaningful basis for identification. I think that is so, look, that's obviously terrible in the way that they mean it and what effect it's gonna have. It's also so wildly insane that they're the ones saying it. These men, because most of them are men, think it is so crucial to them that their internal sense of their own gender define who they are. Many of their billionaires are now running to the Manosphere podcast to reassert their internal sense of their own manhood. But it also apparently doesn't provide a meaningful basis for identification, which is interesting. In any event, the effect will be that the government will also eliminate references to gender identity in policy documents, and will order that government issued documents, including passports and visas, accurately reflect one's biological sex. Many people are worried that this means that potentially millions of Americans' identification documents will no longer they won't be valid anymore. People could be utterly screwed in trying to go abroad, trying to return to America. God only knows. Now, if you had any empathy, if you considered these American citizens to be people, like actual human beings, you would probably have thought of that and tried to do something to accommodate them. If they're just a tool that you use to get Greg Gutfeld to say that you're cool or something for a news cycle, then sure, whatever. Maybe this ruins their life, who cares? He also revoked a directive that had been designed to address racial equity and support for underserved communities. And he said in his announcement, we will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. And wouldn't that be something, since America has never in any way been that at all. And all of these measures, to the limited extent that they existed at all, and just recently, were designed to try to tip the scales back towards equity, when that has never been the way that it's worked. Business practices, hiring has never been colorblind. It has always been biased. These efforts were a small attempt to make it slightly more even. That is it. But that's gone. And we can throw on the top of this these sorts of things that he's just giving out, identity politics and culture wars and stuff like that, to distract the masses he disrespects so much. The Gulf of Mexico, he named the Gulf of America. It's not a thing that he can just unilaterally do, but it is a thing that you can write on a piece of paper. They also renamed North America's tallest peak Mount McKinley, changing its name from Mount Denali. That's a thing that Obama had done in 2015. It was such a priority of Trump that he didn't do it his whole first time in the presidency. But again, they need to give their base something so they won't see the tax cuts and all that. And yeah, so a lot going on in this field as well. Brett, what do you think?
It's just, I don't know, like changing the name of Mount McKinley, Denali to McKinley is hopefully devalues all the other ones of these. The hope that I have, the only shred of hope I have, is that no one in the government's actually gonna do anything about this. They're not gonna enforce it. It's just, hopefully this is just like monopoly money he's casting into the air and everyone's like gobbles it up, and then you can't really buy anything with it. But I can't help but think there are negative effects to things like eliminating, like changing the nature of gender identity top to bottom on government documents with a stroke of a pen. And like the thing that's frustrating is, like you said, that you're right, John, like the problems that create a lack of equity in America are so hard to fix. And then the people who try to fix them face these headwinds of folks that don't want them fixed, pointing out, like, yeah, it is, you have to do some level of discrimination to undo the discrimination. Like there's no way to achieve the ends that you want, where everyone does have a fair shake, without addressing the actual issues in their very nature, which are racial, which are gender-based. And now you're doing racial and gender-based discrimination. It's very impossible. And that's the trick of the Republicans, who suddenly, believe that like, oh, this is a fair and equitable society. It has to be. And the only time they bring out that counter argument is when you're trying to create a more equitable society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's my take on it, John. I don't,
and
yeah.
Yeah, look, and the fact that this was, so much of what he talked about in his speeches, and this is what, the House passed first. It's just, again, a reminder. The right says that the left does identity politics because the right is required by law to project 24/7. That is what they're handing over. It's all identity politics. It is all about identity. It is all about the hierarchy and elevating their followers by demographic breakdown into a false sense, a useless sense of superiority.
And this stuff all looks so bad from an equity standpoint. It looks so bad from a potentially racist, fascist standpoint. Like, don't make it worse, Elon, by Nazi saluting on stage.